The delicious aroma of freshly baked biscuits filled Tiffany Moses' flat in Gwinnett County, Georgia. She pulled a warm batch out of the oven and set them on the kitchen counter to cool. Tiffany had been craving chocolate all day and had asked her husband, Eamon, to bring home some biscuit dough after work. When the biscuits were ready, Tiffany and Eamon snuggled up with their two small children, looking like the perfect family. However, in the next bedroom, the smell of the biscuits was pure torture. A girl was lying on the bed, exhausted and starving, her body reduced to skin and bones after weeks of near starvation. She wasn't allowed to join the feast and didn't feel like part of the family at all. 10-year-old Emma wasn't dying, and no one was taking action to prevent it. When Tiffany and Emma met, Emma already had a daughter, Amani, from a previous relationship. Despite Amani's mother's attempts to gain custody, the courts decided against her, and Amani remained with her father. Tiffany and Ammon eventually married and had 2 children together. As Ammon worked 2 jobs, Tiffany, now Amani's stepmother, spent more time at home with the children. Amani was a sweet, gentle girl who loved to smile, but Tiffany had no time for her stepdaughter. She often wrote to Eamon at work, complaining that Amani was constantly misbehaving. Initially, Tiffany's neglect and favoritism towards her biological children were evident, but the situation escalated significantly. In 2010, when Amani was 6, her teachers raised concerns with social services, leading to charges against Tiffany. She eventually pleaded guilty to hitting Amani with a belt, insisting it happened only 2 or 3 times, despite indications of prolonged abuse. Tiffany was sentenced to 5 years of probation, lost her job, and blamed Amani, which only intensified her hatred. She pulled Amani out of school and kept her at home, where the abuse escalated. 2 years later, Amani tried to run away at least twice, preferring to sleep in the bushes rather than go home. When she was found, she said she didn't want to return because her stepmother tied her up with belts and put her in cold showers. Tiffany denied everything, and without evidence, no charges were made. Amani was accused of lying and brought back home, but unfortunately, a little girl was telling the truth. Amani was kept in her bedroom and deprived of food and water. On at least 2 occasions, Tiffany sent Amani pictures of the meals she had prepared for her husband and her children, who remained happy and healthy. All the while, Amani was withering. On November 2, 2013, Tiffany's husband Ammon called 911 to report that his 10-year-old daughter was dead. When police arrived at the flat, they were horrified to find a galvanized steel beam outside the girl's partially burnt body. What kind of horror had happened in the Moses home? As a result, Ammon was arrested, and Tiffany ran away to her mom, but she was also hunted down and later arrested as well. At first, Ammon said that his daughter died from taking chemicals, and instead of reporting her death, they tried to cover up the accident, but this story made no sense. No one believed him. At the time of her death, Amani weighed only 32 pounds. This is the average weight of an infant. She was severely underfed. Further, at the inquest, Ammon's story changed. He reported that his wife called him on October 28 to inform him that Amani was dead. Their neglect meant she literally starved to death in her bed. Ammon claimed he wanted to call 911 but went along with his wife's plan to cover up the death and claimed the spouse had run away. They hid Amani's body in their office and went on with their normal lives. Tiffany was still on probation for harming the girl and knew she risked losing her 2 biological children if it became known that Amani had died. Ammon told investigators that Tiffany suggested he cremate her remains. Ammon went and bought a steel can, rubbish bags, charcoal, and kindling liquid. On November the 1st, they took Amani's body to the countryside and even took their other 2 children. They bent Amani's body stiff from rigor mortis, breaking her bones, to stuff her into the barrel. They splashed the tank with lighter fluid and set the girl's body on fire. Aman said they watched the flames for 5 minutes before realizing the fire would not burn her remains. So they took Amani's body home until guilt took over the next day and he informed the authorities. As a result, Tiffany and Aman were charged with murder. When the details of what happened to Amani reached the press, the public was outraged. People questioned how this could have happened and why no one helped Amani. Aman agreed to testify against his wife and in 2015 pleaded guilty to murder, receiving a life sentence. During Tiffany's trial, she refused a lawyer, chose to defend herself, but did not testify or call any witnesses. She claimed she believed God would help her through it. The trial was harrowing, exposing the jury to traumatic images and details. The prosecution argued that Tiffany starved her stepdaughter to death out of anger and annoyance at having to care for a child she didn't want. This is a Cinderella case gone wrong, they said. There is no glass slipper, no Prince Charming, just an evil stepmother. As a result, the 10-year-old starved to death while Tiffany's own children remained healthy and happy. Aman testified that a few days before Amani's died, she had a seizure, likely from severe starvation. Tiffany said they didn't take her to the doctor because she was too thin, so they put her in her bed where she died. When asked why he didn't call 911, Aman said, "I was trying to solve a problem that couldn't be solved." They attempted to cremate Amani, but Aman eventually called the authorities, saying he couldn't live with the guilt. His words ran hollow as the gruesome details of Amani's death were revealed in court. The jury was silent when Aman wrote how he broke his daughter's bones to put her body in a steel container. Medical experts described how Amani withered without food or water, lying in her own feces because she was too weak to move. Jurors were shown gruesome autopsy photos and told how Tiffany cared for her biological children, but didn't do the same for Amani. She was a nobody, the prosecution said, describing how Tiffany humiliated Amani. She was a nuisance, she was ugly, she was a pain, she was rubbish. Jurors wept during closing arguments after hearing how Amani Moss lived with the evil of the world. Tiffany, 36, was found guilty of murder, child abuse, and covering up a murder, after which the court sentenced her to death. She became the only woman on death row in the state of Georgia, but actually has not reacted in any way and has refused to comment on what's happening. If she is given a lethal injection, she will become only the third woman executed in state history, but her scheduled execution date was cancelled due to automatic appeals. No word at this time on the fate of the brutal killers. Thank you for watching. I recommend you watching other interesting and no less shocking stories. Subscribe to my channel, put likes, and leave your comments.